All right, Journal 3. So this is the one about representation and its complications, and we're on page 57. You guys did really well on this. I want to say, by the way, something. You notice, I'm getting used to online teaching, and one thing that I didn't know if it'd be a drawback, but now I kind of see it as an asset, is that I'm asking you guys to read and respond to this stuff before we've talked about it, or before you've gotten any outside help or anything from me on it. I actually think that's good because now that I'm talking about it, it's after you've worked on it and you've tried. You're going to get way more out of my discussion of this if you've already done the work, if you struggled with it yourself. And also, don't think that just because now I'm telling you stuff, you go, oh, I wasted my time. Why did he just not tell me this? Because no, it's you struggling with it is what's making me now responding to it more useful to you. And what's more, you'll notice that I struggle with it too. And that's this. I want you to get at that because that's part of writing a good paper. Is that you're you're really trying to work it out. There's not like oh, what is the answer that he wants? What I want you to do is try to make a case for whatever you discover, or show me what you discover and try to make a case for it. How do I make it to where I'm looking right at the camera? I'm having a little trouble with that. Okay, don't worry about it. So let's look at page 57 here. I just some things on. You guys did really well on this. Oh, you know what? I was going to share some of yours. So hold on. Let me find one to share of yours. Okay. Okay. Let's just jump into this. So I think the Wordsworth one was maybe the most challenging in some ways, or the one by Coleridge. So I'm on page 57. So pause it if you need to and get it open to page 57. And let's look at what Samuel Taylor Coleridge said about Wordsworth. Let me, by the way, give you a little context here. They were both, Coleridge and Wordsworth, were both English poets who wrote in the early 1800s in England. They're some of the most famous poets in the English language. Take my English, oh no, I'm not teaching it anymore, but take English Literature 2, British Literature 2, and you get to read those guys, or you would if you took my class. So anyway, let's read this here. Mr. Wordsworth was to propose to himself as his object to give the. Okay, I want to pause there because somebody had a little trouble with that. Here, object is kind of being used in an old-fashioned way. It means his purpose. So that's a very fancy way of saying Mr. Wordsworth's purpose was to give the charm of novelty to things of every day, was to propose to himself as his object, as his purpose. Okay, so that's what's going on there. To give the charm of novelty, newness, to things of every day, and to excite a feeling analogous to the supernatural. I want to pause there. So he didn't actually want to create the supernatural or refer to the supernatural. Analogous comes from the word analogy, and I think most of you know what an analogy is. That's a comparison. X is like Y. It would be as if you were. It'd be like actually that right there. That's an analogy. It's a metaphor too, but metaphors are analogies. It's if her eyes had been matches, that's what it'd be like. You're comparing one thing to another. So he's saying that what he's doing is like the supernatural. What he wants to do, at least the way I'm looking at it, is he wants to make us see that the ordinary, everyday world is as cool as the supernatural. I would say it's cooler, because it is real. So that's analogous. So a feeling analogous is like a feeling similar to the supernatural by awakening the mind's attention from the lethargy. Lethargy means laziness. The lethargy of custom. Here, custom means, the way we do things most of the time. So most of the time, our minds are lazy, right? Because we just go through the everyday habits. And directing it to the loveliness and the wonders of the world before us, an inexhaustible treasure, but for which, in consequence of the film of familiarity, not like a movie film, but like as if there were opaque pane of glass in that sense, like a film over your eye or something like that. Film of familiarity and selfish solicitude, we have eyes, yet see not, ears that hear not, and hearts that neither feel nor understand. Solicitude means care, or in this sense, worry. In other words, the selfish solicitude is the fact that we're mostly worrying about, oh, am I going to get home on time? Am I going to make enough money? Did she get mad at me? So you're all worried. You're all absorbed so much in yourself and your own personal worries that you're not even aware of the world out there. So yeah, so he tries to break that down. You guys did a pretty good job with it, but I wanted to make sure you're clear on some of the language here he uses. Notice, by the way, he imitates, Coleridge does, in talking about Wordsworth, biblical language, and I'm sure he does it on purpose. I almost feel like I could find in the one of the Gospels this exact phrase. We have eyes yet see not, ears that hear not, hearts that neither feel nor understand. So Coleridge is there being almost purposefully biblical to kind of add importance, if you will. And you might say, by the way, that that's a literary technique. Maybe, though. I think people do that also in their natural narratives. Okay, and I just wanted to give a good example. First, let me say I was kind of lazy on this, and the assignment asked you to try to say what it meant. I tried to really narrow it down. So, for example, I just said for Coleridge, Wordsworth's poetry evokes an appreciation for the everyday, so that we see it freshly, in a fresh sense. Usually, our senses are dulled by custom, habit, and self-absorption. That's it. I actually needed to revise that. I had some mistakes. So I did it real quickly, but some of you did it in more detail. I just want to quote, I think, a pretty good one. Am I doing on time? Okay. In the first quotation by Wordsworth, well, actually, we've done that. So let's see what this person says about Shelley. Let me just, you know what? I'm not going to read all of these. I think let me just tell you what this guy said. I think you guys got Shelley pretty well. Shelley tells us, this is one of you. I'm reading one of yours that I think is pretty good. Shelley tells us that poetry is a way to see the beauty of things that we are used to seeing that have lost their beauty because we see them too often. Adding to this, he states that the mind is very unique to every person and they see the world as they like to see it. A person can, as he says, see a heaven and hell and a hell and heaven. By the way, this person needed to put some of that in quotes. I should find one. When you summarize, if you use words from the original, you want to put it in quotes. And while I'm thinking about it, when you do these journals and your posts and everything, don't plagiarize, okay? So if you're looking stuff up on Google or wherever, you can do that, but you need to say in your response or whatever you're writing that you got it, and you need to put any exact words for words in quotations. You need to say where you got it from, and if you're copying word for word, you need to put it in quotations, just like you would for a paper. If you don't want to take the time to do that, then don't look stuff up. As soon as you look stuff up on the internet, you're responsible for making sure you don't plagiarize, okay? And that means giving credit where credit is due, citing your sources, and so forth. We'll talk more about this, but you guys should more or less already know that if you're in 1B, okay? So the point of these exercises is not for you to find the answer. The point is for you to struggle with it yourself. That's how you're going to learn. If you don't do that, you're cheating yourself. And, take the time, give yourself the time to do it and do the best you can. I'm not expecting this stuff to be perfect. Then when you get to your paper, you can really work it over. But this is like drafting. This is like you getting your ideas on paper and exploring things. This is writing as exploration. All right, mostly. Okay, so let me finish that. But we use poetry as a tool to be able to see beyond what a regular person perceives. It allows us to be able to see the beauty in things that we otherwise take for granted as objects without beauty. I think that what Shelley tells us is that poetry itself is something that allows us to see beyond the normality of things and to find innate beauty of mundane things, such as the way that things are arranged all around us. We usually don't see any beauty, but they are arranged around us in a way that we utilize things. Yeah. I believe that I think that means we don't notice beauty, we're just looking for how we can use things. And we need to stop, and I think that's what he means here. I believe that if someone made a poem about the way we arrange things, then they would find a beauty even in such place as the cabinet behind the bathroom's mirror. I love that. Here you notice that the writer is going beyond just giving us a summary of what Coleridge is, or what Shelley is saying, and is kind of developing the idea with an example. And that's what you want to do when you write your papers. Like you could quote from Shelley and then give this kind of example, which is that even a medicine cabinet is beautiful if you know how to look at it, which is great. That's the idea, yeah. I believe this is because Shelley makes a comment about the world that we live in is chaos, and perhaps the chaos is what we make before we have to sit down and give order to things to avoid being swallowed by the chaos itself. Nice, yeah, he does. It's almost like he says, yeah, what you want to do, what poetry can do is break it down to where we don't see the ordinary order to now it's like overwhelming us because it's chaotic, and then our creative mind can reorganize it in some new and creative way, something like that. But and then I think most of you did really well on Shklovsky. I think he was the easiest because he was the most recent. Shelley, by the way, is another early 1800s British poet. So Wordsworth, Coleridge, and Shelley are all early 1800s. Yeah, so I'll go ahead and run by the Shklovsky. What I want to look at now are the painting and the poems, and there was a mistake in my instructions, which I borrowed from someone else, and that's not. This is a painting. It's not a photo. Okay, and one or two of you reasonably said, thought that I was asking you to write about that because which is a photo, and that's fine. I didn't give you. I went ahead and let you write about that. That's fine. But I want to focus on these two here. So first, one thing you guys need to work on is you had interesting things to say, but you want to support your things with specifics. There are a lot of cases where when you were writing about the poem, or the painting, or the poems, there was nothing in what you said that would have identified that particular painting or that particular poem. You could have been writing about any painting or any poem or quite a few, and there was nothing in it that would say, oh, I know you're talking about this poem, or I know you're describing that painting. So you need to do a little bit more of actual detailed reference or description or quotation or of the object of study, okay? And I'll give you an example. Let me pause it and let me find some good examples that some of you did write where we know what you're talking about and you go into detail. And then